The U.S. National Park Service on Monday, April 7th, 2025, appeared to restore its original webpage on the history of the Underground Railroad and Harriet Tubman after it was met with backlash for deleting a prominently featured photo of abolitionist and women's suffragist champion Harriet Tubman, as well as segments of text describing the horrors of slavery. Now, the Washington Post was the first to report on this on Sunday, April 6th, and thegrio.com picked up this story as well. Now, President Donald Trump issued an executive order in late March 2025 directing the Smithsonian Institution to eliminate, quote unquote, divisive narratives, a move that spurred fears that his administration aimed to whitewash American history. Now, Donald Trump has also broadly pushed to remove what he has called, quote, the tyranny, end quote, of diversity, equity, and inclusion, better known as DEI policies, at U.S. schools, universities, and other institutions. Now, remember, this is a continuation of Donald Trump's attack on African American history, especially going back to his first administration. We know that he attacked the 1619 Project and created the 1776 Project, which put out a fake history, a false history of this country. And in September of 2020, Donald Trump signed an executive order banning the usage of critical race theory in training for federal employees. And this was 6 months before conservative activist Christopher Rufo put out his series of tweets in March of 2021 attacking critical race theory. Now, the page at the U.S. National Parks Service website appeared to have been changed in February of 2025 during what's better known as Black History Month. And it was changed to instead show images of postage stamps that highlighted, quote, black-white cooperation, end quote. New text emphasized that the Underground Railroad, quote, bridged the divides of race, end quote, and other differences. I wonder if Donald Trump brought this up to Black MAGA at the White House Black History Month celebration. Remember that in February, the end of February, that disgraceful disparagement of African American history? The whole goal of whitewashing this history is to minimize the horrors of slavery and to minimize the impact and to minimize the culpability and the responsibility and involvement that white people had in perpetuating slavery in this country. Okay, and remember, as I talked about before the 2024 election, Donald Trump was focused on white grievance, and this is something that Project 2025 pushed and hit upon as well. And Project 2025 dealt with anti-DEI policies. Now, a comparison on what's known as the Wayback Machine between the web page, the U.S. National Park Service webpage on January 21st, 2025, the day after Trump was inaugurated into office for a second time, and March 19th, 2025, shows that the large image of Harriet Tubman, who was the Underground Railroad's most famous, quote unquote, conductor, and one of the most famous abolitionists as well, lauded for helping scores of people escape slavery. Scores of African Americans escape slavery. The number is right around 750. The images have been swapped with a series of 5 commemorative stamps showing Harriet Tubman along William Steele, who was one of the organizers of the Underground Railroad. William Steele in Philadelphia, African American man. He was a wealthy businessman, and he was one of the main people who recorded the history of the Underground Railroad. Also, Catherine Coffin, Thomas Garrett, and the great Frederick Douglass. Now, all five postage stamps all five people on these postage stamps aided enslaved African Americans seeking freedom. Now, the focus of the text also changed significantly. Comparison shows the focus of the text of the information on this website. The new page does not mention slavery until the third paragraph and cuts a reference to the Fugitive Slave Act of 1850 entirely. Previously, the article started with a description of enslaved people's efforts to free themselves and the organization of the Underground Railroad after the Fugitive Slave Act. The article now starts with two paragraphs that emphasize the, quote, American ideas of liberty and freedom, end quote. Now, also removed was a mural of the 54th Massachusetts Infantry Regiment, which was the first black regiment made up of those raised in the North, those who lived and were raised in the North. And this is during the U.S. Civil War. Now, we saw the 54th Regiment depicted in the movie Glory with Morgan Freeman and Denzel Washington. The information has been added back to the website. So you may be asking the question, what was the Fugitive Slave Act of 1850? So the Fugitive Slave Act of 1850 was one of 5 bills that made up what's known as the Compromise of 1850. And the Compromise of 1850 was a group of bills that were designed to organize the land that the U.S. got from Mexico in what's known as the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo of 1848. And this was the treaty that ended the Mexican-American War of 1846 to 1848. The U.S. gets the land that makes up California, Arizona, New Mexico, Colorado, Utah, and Nevada. And we know California comes into the Union as a free state in 1850, but also the Fugitive Slave Act of 1850 was part of the Compromise of 1850. And the Fugitive Slave Act of 1850 goes farther than the Fugitive Slave Act of 1793. So this new Fugitive Slave Act, what it does is it denies enslaved people the right to a jury trial, and it increased the penalty for interfering with the capturing process of enslaved African people when they run to the North. Okay, and if they could, anybody interfering with that process could be fined up to $1,000 and spend 6 months in jail. So what this Fugitive Slave Act did, it caused more African Americans to go into Canada, runaway slaves. It caused more of them to go into Canada. Part of the restored text at the U.S. National Park Service website describes the 18th and 19th century Underground Railroad as, quote, efforts of enslaved African Americans to gain their freedom by escaping bondage, end quote. Now, Harriet Tubman, whose birth name was Araminta Ross, was one of the system's best known conductors, or one of those who helped runaway slaves escape. A Washington Post review of websites operated by the National Park Service, among the key agencies charged with the preservation of American history, had found that edits on dozens of pages since Donald Trump's inauguration on January 20th, 2025, softened descriptions of some of the most shameful moments of the nation's past or of the nation's history. Some were edited to remove references to slavery, while some statements on the historic struggle of African Americans for their rights were cut or altered, as were references to present-day echoes of racial division. So we saw in Donald Trump's first term in office He attacked the 1619 Project, as I said before. He banned the use of critical race theory when it came to federal employees. We saw this attack on African American history in his first administration, and then it continued after he left office because we saw the rise of the book bans at the local level. When it came to local school boards, we saw the rise of organizations like Moms for Liberty, etc. But then also at the state level, in a lot of states, former Confederate states, especially like the state of Florida, we saw them banning topics that could be taught in public schools, K through 12, banning topics that they said made children feel uncomfortable. They were basically talking about white children. Now, some were also edited to remove references to slavery. On other pages, statements on the historic struggle of African Americans for their rights were cut or softened. The Washington Post compared web pages as of late March 2025 to earlier versions preserved online by the Internet's archives Wayback Machine, the Wayback Machine. The Washington Post quoted two Park Service employees who spoke on the condition of anonymity because they feared retribution. And they said that political appointees at the Interior Department, which oversees the National Park Service, had directed senior career officials to identify web pages that might need to be changed. And this is based upon Donald Trump's executive order. Now, the page on the history of the Underground Railroad at the U.S. National Park Service website, which prominently highlighted Harriet Tubman's contributions to the abolitionist movement, appears to be in its original form. However, some of the other changes to web pages reported by the Washington Post still appear to be in place. The U.S. National Park Service said in a statement that, quote, changes to the Underground Railroad page on the National Park Service's website were made, quote unquote, without approval from National Park Service leadership nor department leadership. The web page was immediately restored to its original content, end quote, the statement said. Now, in March 2025, an article on the Department of Defense website that highlighted Baseball Hall of Fame hero Jackie Robinson's military service during World War II when he was in the U.S. Army was restored after it was deleted in a broader DEI purge. An Army page recognizing the 442nd Regimental Combat Team, a Japanese American unit that fought in World War II, was also restored after its removal led to similar outcry. So once again, we see this attack, especially on African American history, and these changes are made, then there's public outcry, then they go restore it back to its original form, but other changes are still in place. And then you still have the attack on history in schools. You still have the attack on diversity, equity, and inclusion all across the board, wiping out grants, wiping out various programs, the executive order that he just did, shutting down the Minority Business Development Agency that and one of the things they do is help African American owned businesses get contracts. Okay, so check out these articles at thegrio.com and the Washington Post. I'm historian and national political commentator Michael Imhotep, founder of the African History Network and host of the African History Network show. So tell me, what are your thoughts on this story? You can post your comments here on the broadcast, and like, share, and comment on this video. Be sure to follow me on Facebook and on Fanbase at The African History Network, The African History Network, and on my YouTube channel and Instagram at Michael Imhotep, IMHOTEP. Visit my website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. Watch me every Friday, 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Roland Martin Unfiltered, where I provide historical and political analysis I've been on that show almost every Friday for the past 5 years. And watch the African History Network show Sundays, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on my social media platforms as well. You can register for my online history class, Ancient Kemet, which is one of the original names for Egypt. Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Ma'afa, Understanding the Transatlantic Slave Trade, what they didn't teach you in school. I teach this on Saturdays, 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We deal with thousands of years of history and what leads up to the transatlantic slave trade taking place. Okay, so visit my website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. We do the sessions live. All the sessions are archived and recorded. You can go back and watch it any time. You can also download my class lesson plan for that class as well. We deal with 80 to 100 articles in the class, and also there are about 200 slides that I've created, and the 15 books that we reference. You don't have to buy any of the books to follow along in class. We show you all the excerpts on the screen. Remember, right now it's correct wrong behaviors, not over till we win. Wakanda forever. We'll talk to you next time. Peace.
Here at Sage and Elm, it's a plant thing. Everything is made by hand from plants, from our salves to our soaps, our lotions, our oils. Come shop our over 400 products made by hand from plants just for you, because you deserve the best.
Did you know that the Washington Monument is based upon an ancient African structure called a tekken that comes from the mythology of Asar, Arset, and Heru, who the Greeks called Osiris, Isis, and Horus? Did you know that the panther deity Bast in the movie Black Panther and Wakanda Forever comes from an ancient African deity, a neter in ancient Egypt, ancient Kemet, called Bastet? Did you know that there were 17 pyramids found buried underneath Egypt around 2011? Also, the city of Memphis, Tennessee. What's the relationship between Memphis, Tennessee and Memphis in ancient Egypt? I'm historian and national political commentator Michael Imhotep. Be sure to register for my new 12-week online history course, Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Ma'afa, Understanding the Transatlantic Slave Trade, what they didn't teach you in school. Kemet is one of the original names for Egypt. We deal with thousands of years of history and what leads up to the transatlantic slave trade taking place. Did you know that the word Wakanda is a real word? We find it in the Key Congo language, which is a Bantu language, but we also find it in the Omaha Ponca and Sioux Indian Native American languages. My class starts up Saturday, March 1st, 2025, 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. This is a 12-week online history course. We do the sessions live. All the sessions are archived and recorded. We deal with thousands of years of history and what leads up to the transatlantic slave trade taking place. When we talk about the transatlantic slave trade, we can't start our studying of the history in 1619 in Hampton, Virginia, or in Jamestown. We can't start in 1441 with the transatlantic slave trade starting with the Portuguese. We have to deal with thousands of years of history that leads up to the transatlantic slave trade taking place. We'll deal with the 800-year occupation of Europe by the Africans known as the Moors, who take the teachings from the Nile Valley region of Africa into Europe, and this is what brings Europe out of the Dark Ages. We'll talk about ancient African empires, whether we deal with ancient Nubia, whether we deal with Kush, Kemet, Mali, Songhai, Ghana. This is a 12-week online history course. We deal with 80 to 100 articles. There are 200 slides that I show you in the class. There are video clips. There are 15 books that we reference. You don't have to buy any of the books to follow along in class. It's a very visual class, so we show you all that information right on the screen. The class is PG-13 as well, so you can use this with your children. Download my lesson plan from my website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. Register right now. Right now, it's correct strong behaviors, not over till we win. Wakanda forever. AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. We'll see you in class. Peace.
Is your child struggling with reading, writing, learning loss, and a culturally irrelevant curriculum? Do you want your child to be outstanding at reading and writing and also take pride in their culture? Then you want Reading Revolution Online. Reading Revolution Online is a web-based reading support program. We serve scholars in grades K through 8, and through our innovative approach, we help them build reading confidence and cultural identity development, equipping them for success in school and life. They learn about Black heroes and sheroes through captioned videos, reading selections, and other activities. Reading Revolution Online is an experience for the whole family. Do it for the culture. Go to readingrevolution.org and get your membership today.
Here at Sage and Elm, it's a plant thing. Everything is made by hand from plants, from our salves to our soaps, our lotions, our oils. Come shop our over 400 products made by hand from plants just for you, because you deserve the best.